Live.
And we're live. Thanks everybody for joining. Hope ecosystem from Moonbeam and Moonriver. I am here to be the MC today and introduce everybody knows Derek, and I think a lot of folks probably know Olivia as well. This is her second appearance, I think, live. Olivia is our Director of Strategy and Operations, and Derek is obviously our founder. We wanted to grab a couple minutes today to not only look back at 2020 and 2021 in review, but look forward to 2022 and talk a little bit about what we're going to be seeing over the coming weeks, months, and years. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Olivia, who is going to start the presentation and go from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Nate. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. As Nate said, it's my second time doing a presentation, so learning about Crowdcast and how to be a presenter. But I'm really excited to talk today about Moonriver. 2021 had a lot happening in it, gearing up to launch both Moonbeam and Moonriver, and actually launching Moonriver starting in June and going live in August. I think that Moonriver speaks for itself in terms of the statistics that you can see. And I don't know if I can, on our next slide, we show kind of the different stats that we pulled out for Moonriver. And we went live on Moonriver in August 26th, I believe. And within a month of going live, we had 1 million transactions. You can see on this slide today, less than 4 months going live, we have 13 million transactions on Moonriver, which is just so awesome. I think it really speaks to the fact that there is a lot to do on Moonriver. The 1 million transactions of 4 months after we launched was just enthusiasm from the community. There was already starting to be some projects on Moonriver. There was staking. And now 4 months later, we have all these different use cases. There's DeFi, there's DeFi 2.0, there's NFT, there's gaming. There's so much to do. And I think that it's really, it's taken a life of its own. And I think that's so cool. And the fact that we have 70 plus integrations on Moonriver, a lot of these teams that we've talked to, but we didn't even know that they were going to deploy beforehand. And so and we're constantly seeing new teams deploy. And it's really, the dreams are coming into fruition. I think the other point that I would make here is that we have over 3,000 different ERC20 tokens. So it's not just different use cases, but it's a lot of different teams and projects that are bringing innovation to Moonriver on a daily basis. And so, there's a huge thank you we owe to our community, both the developers and the users who have allowed this to come true. And we're really excited to see if we can do this in the first 4 months, we're really excited to see what can happen in year 1, year 2, and beyond. And I don't know, Derek, I know if you have anything to add here, but these were just the big things that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's happened in the last, it hasn't even been 4 months yet. It's been, just shy of 4 months.
Yeah.
So I'm incredibly pleased by, all the activity. I think it surpassed our expectations. We had some internal, kind of a model that we created, and we had some predictions about what was going to happen, and everything was easily exceeded. And I'm maybe getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I do think there was also just this huge amount of valuable lessons that were learned going through the process of Moonriver. So obviously that informs the Moonbeam plans quite a bit. But yeah, why don't I kind of take over and talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened from a technical perspective that I think are quite interesting. So if we look at Moonriver and just what's happened in the last just shy of 4 months, there have been 12 upgrades to Moonriver in that time, and I think it's worth thinking about that for a minute. That these are upgrades on a live and running chain, and this is something that is a unique capability and strength of using Substrate. So when you use Substrate to build your chain, as we have in this case, it has this built-in upgradability in it that many other chains don't have, which makes it quite easy and kind of you avoid these risks of forks when you use governance on your chain and these Substrate upgrade mechanisms to upgrade your chain. And so the fact that we've done that 12 times in 3 months, I mean, will that rate remain? I don't know. We'll see. But this is a very important competitive advantage, being able to change and adapt to the chain as we learn new things. It could be bug fixes, but it could also be introducing new features or adapting existing features based on feedback we're getting or what we're seeing, happen. That is probably one of the most important competitive advantages that Substrate provides. So I do think that that's quite notable. This collator stat around moving from at the beginning 8 to 58 collators, and we will be expanding this further. That has been like a huge success from our perspective as well. Just this community that's formed around providing this critical block production or collation service for Moonriver. And that same community is lined up now to help support the Moonbeam launch as well. That has been just a huge success. I think I'm sometimes in the Discord group where that's kind of the main meeting point for this community. And the thing I think that I think is that makes me quite happy is that ostensibly, I guess these collators are kind of competing against each other, right? And in other chains, you see that it's this maybe almost adversarial environment, providing this collation service. It is a bit different in ours, where it is a pretty kind of collaborative and like friendly environment. And I think that's almost a little bit of what we're trying to do, even as a whole, right? Like when people are coming to our community, we want to be known as a place that's kind of friendly and inviting and willing to work with people that are new and kind of teach them. So that's just been a huge success. We've seen a huge amount of engagement. We've seen like DAOs even, there's a number of DAOs now that are like pooling funds to be able to run one of these collators. So a lot of interesting activity on the collator side. And just some of these stats, there's just more stats from that are like the ones that Olivia mentioned. Not just blocks, but I think RPC access. There's just a huge number of queries that we're getting. Us and different partners providing RPC access. We've seen just large amounts of activity. I want to spend a little bit of time also talking about some of the developer community and the docs in particular. So there are definitely unsung like heroes here, and kind of a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes that I think is a big part of how Moonriver has been able to capture so much activity. And I'd call the strategy, it's getting out of the developer's way and kind of reducing the points of friction. So you just take an example like our doc site. There's been an enormous amount of effort that's gone into the developer documentation around Moonriver and Moonbeam. And you can see that we had already been investing in this earlier on in the year, like when we were still in testnet mode, but it's doubled. There's 123 different documents have been created explaining to developers how to use the system. These 30 tools, a lot of these tools that are integrations that exist on Moonriver specifically came from feedback that we got from development teams when we asked them, what is it that you need? Like, what tools do you need to be successful? What do you expect? What needs to just work out of the box? And I think it's the collection of this, of creating all these integrations, documenting them, testing them to make sure that things work. That's kind of half the battle, right? I mean, I think developers, they just want things to work when they're trying to use them. So I think that's, this is like one of the key reasons I think we've been able to get this developer engagement is just the quality of the experience, the tools, the documentation, really huge amounts of effort have gone into this. So yeah, just a shout out to Alberto and his team who have driven a lot of the documentation around the platform. And I think what we will see is more of, you can see at the bottom here around Moon Builders Workshop, Moon Builders Academy, where there's a lot of work that's been going on to help provide additional avenues of learning and engagement for developers. And so we're going to see, there's a lot that's happened this year, and we're going to see quite a bit more of that into next year. Particularly, I'll give a shout out to Henry, who has put together a whole like learning exercise in Chinese. That's being translated like back into English now, but that's helped us engage like a whole new audience of developers in China. Yeah, I mean, I think these are things that like really I'm quite proud of.
Definitely. Great. Okay, so we're moving into Moonbeam. I can't believe that it was just a little under a month ago that we won the slot for Polkadot. And we did that similar to kind of Moonriver with a crowd loan. And I think that going into the Moonbeam crowd loan, we were just, as Derek mentioned, just completely overwhelmed and astonished by the support that we had in Moonriver. And, we were also aware that the community was growing, that the awareness was growing. And we wanted to create a crowd loan that, we don't have that much to play with the crowd loan, but that really did attract the right users and people that were loyal to the community. And so we announced that we were going to give 10% of the network away. And we were just amazed. We had 200,000 contributors worldwide. We had 35 million DOT contributed, which was just a massive amount of value locked in our crowd loan to launch Moonbeam onto Polkadot. And so once we ended the crowd loan and secured the slot, we announced that we would actually be rewarding an additional 50%, which was made the total allotment for the crowd loan rewards up to 150 million Glimmer, to reward the people that believed in us, the true believers, from users to developers, and to the people that have been with us and see this vision with us. I think that this is, to me, this kind of runs true to a lot of the big decisions we've made, whether that's like the whitelist for Take Flight and different initiatives on Moonriver. It's, we recognize the people. It was, I think it was around 7,000 people who contributed to the Moonriver crowd loan. And we recognize our true community, and we're really excited to bring just this many more people into the community with the Moonbeam crowd loan. Going from 7,000 people in the Moonriver crowd loan to 200,000 people in the Moonbeam crowd loan is an incredible accomplishment, and we are just so excited to see our community expand. I don't know, Derek, if you have anything else that you want to add to that, but those were my big takeaways.
No, these are just big numbers, and I think we have some other stats that we'll show in a minute. That I really think the theme of this year has been about growth, basically around growth of the of awareness of our project. But why don't you go ahead and talk about the launch sequence, because I know that's on a lot of people's minds, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who want to know about what this launch sequence looks like, given that we're
definitely
about to hit about to start producing blocks.
Right. So as I said, we won the slot, and then it's a little bit different from the Moonriver and the Kusama auctions, because now we're moving into all the 5 parachains that won slots. They are all deploying at the same time, which is happening late on December 17th, tomorrow, or early December 18th, depending on what time zone you're in. And so for Moonriver, it was the first time that we were onboarding. And so we had a longer process, a little bit more conservative, and we learned a lot throughout that phase launch process. And so we're have a similar strategy for Moonbeam, but slightly more bridged. So phase 0 is the first start. It's when we first deploy onto Polkadot, which will happen late tomorrow, early on Saturday. And in this, this is really where we get our feet underneath us. It's very controlled by the foundation, and it's very centralized. Hopefully this will not last that long, and we'll be able to move into phase 1. I think we're targeting early the following week. December 21st is the date that we have here. It's obviously subject to change depending on how phase 0 goes. But phase 1 is really where we start to become more decentralized. We start to focus on governance. We bring in more collators. And so we bring in an additional 24 collators to increase to a total of 32, similar to what we showed on Moonriver in the beginning. And these collators were selected and by the foundation, but based on performance in Moonriver. And so those have been announced on Discord, and we're really excited for that moment of kind of moving into actually kind of the operational health of the network and launching it. And then it ultimately culminates in phase 2, which is when we enable transfers and EVM. And this is kind of the start for many people from the developer's perspective and the user's perspective of when Glimmer is actually transferable. And so the first 30% of the crowd loan rewards will be distributed at this date. Staking will be enabled, similar to Moonriver, so people can get their crowd loan rewards, and right away there will be a use case for their Glimmer, which is really exciting. And that we're targeting kind of early mid-January of next year. So kind of a 3 to 4 week process for the 3 phases.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we expect to happen more or less right away, and again, a lot of the things that we think are going to happen are based on experience with Moonriver, right? So Moonriver in a lot of ways provides a pretty good leading indicator of what's going to happen on Moonbeam. It may not be exactly the same, but we think it's going to be highly similar, at least in several regards. There's a whole bunch of project teams that are queued up waiting for this phase 2 to complete so that they can deploy. And some of those teams are actually teams that have deployed on Moonriver that also plan Moonbeam deployments. And at this point, I would say, and if I reflect back on Moonriver, there's just like as I mentioned before, a huge amount of activity. There were some things that we knew about and some things that we were surprised by. The things we knew about, we were pretty focused on helping support DeFi use cases to deploy. That's where a lot of the efforts of like our team to kind of create some partnerships and other things were spent in that area and getting smart on DeFi, which is almost a full-time thing to do these days. So that was kind of known. I think the surprise there was all of the project teams that we had not spoken with that saw the opportunity and wanted to deploy. So we expect the same thing where, on Moonriver, I think even within the first week of being operational, there was multiple deployments from different project teams. So we do expect something similar where it's kind of a greenfield environment, right? And I think what history has shown us is that the first movers are often the folks that get a lot of momentum and traction. So we expect nothing different here. Other surprises that happened on Moonriver were the non-DeFi use cases, since that wasn't necessarily a focus of ours. So I would say that all of the NFT projects that started and are still happening all the time on Moonriver, that was kind of a nice surprise, and that we've been spending actually the last several months getting smarter on NFTs. That's it's not something that we knew as much about, and that's led to some other deployments of infrastructure, right? For a lot of these project teams, that we see our role as providing an environment, trying to reduce the friction again, right? Trying to get out of people's way. And there are certain pieces of infrastructure that are needed to make for a smooth deployment experience. Other than the platform itself, there's things like the Gnosis multisig implementation. There's Oracle support. There's a block explorer. So I think we've learned. We were pretty well organized for this on Moonriver, but we're like even more kind of ready and organized now for Moonbeam. So we expect a lot of those dependencies, those infrastructural components, to be there very quickly, as even those partners now have experience and went through this integration process on Moonriver, and they know that it's almost exactly similar, or will be the same on Moonbeam. They just need to tweak just a couple parameters. So that that's really what I think I'm looking forward to, is just to see what happens with this ecosystem. And some of the questions are: will it be mostly the same projects? Will it be new projects that are targeting only Moonbeam? We know that there's a little bit of a mix, so we'll see. We'll see what happens, and I think it's going to be quite interesting.
Very exciting. Yeah, so I think a theme of my slides is really just how awesome our community is. Frankly, all the stats that we've shared to date have been because of our community, right? The traction and the growth on Moonriver, the support of the Moonbeam crowd loan is all thanks to you guys. And this slide is really dedicated to you in the sense just to show how much we've grown, how much we've expanded our community. I think, the Twitter followers is just one number, like one metric of growth that's just crazy, like 6,000 to 165,000 within a year. And, we would not be, Moonriver and Moonbeam would not be the networks they are today without the ambassadors. And we have over 1,800 ambassadors right now, and they have created a community that is really unmatched, I think. And so they, especially our senior ambassadors, another shout out to them who just work around the clock in helping to unite and to teach and to kind of bring Moonriver and Moonbeam all around the world, is something that we're very honored to be part of. And we're really happy that, there's so much excitement and so much interest in these projects. I think as we've grown and as we've launched Moonriver, we've also tried to be more active with with new events. I think right now we've had 150 plus digital events, and so I think that's just another metric that we hope to grow and continue to expand as we look to the new year. And then I think the next slide, we even have some pictures of some of the events that we've been part of. And these are events that we've helped plan, but there are a lot of events. I think like the top left is in Tulum, which I hear there's going to be another Tulum party that was just kind of created by our community. And so I think that's something that we feel like the ambassador program we helped steward in the beginning, but it's really again taken a life of its own, and our community is uniting. Not even with us present, and so I think that's really awesome, and definitely hoping for more celebrations and more events in the new year.
Yeah, I just will chime in too. I mean, that I look at that like 6,000 to 165,000 number too, not to overfixate on that, but you just can see that this year 2021 was just a year of like a huge amount of growth and awareness like in the project. And I've said this before that we don't have this kind of thing where we raised huge amounts of money and it's kind of this big splashy, hey, we're like the next biggest L1 on the block, and that's not kind of our style or our approach. And I think we are definitely much more about this grassroots like engagement, right? There's it's an actual place where people want to be. It's an actual place where people want to deploy. And so I think that's kind of the strategy and the strength here is to kind of come from underneath with all of this support and make ourselves known. And I think we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
And when I look into next year, I don't see any reason why we can't start to challenge a lot of the other L1s out there that are getting traction. I see us kind of toe to toe with, certainly with the likes of in terms of traction, with a network like let's say Phantom, right? Right out the gate, I think we should be in a similar place. And then I look towards let's call it like Polygon or Avalanche as comparables. There's no reason that we shouldn't be talked about in the same breath as those networks.
Right. Especially because they don't have the moverines, right, Derek?
They don't.
So you can't compete. And I think from a personal standpoint, there's also this moment, I think, especially in the fall, where we constantly answering questions on Discord and Telegram, and I'm starting to see more community members, even outside of the ambassadors, who are answering questions to people and really kind of helping out. And that's a very cool moment and transition, I think, for us as well.
All right, let me talk a little bit. Since I already started anyway, talking about next year and some of the themes for next year. So one is certainly, as I already mentioned, this continued kind of traction, growth of the ecosystem, helping provide support to grow our community, grow awareness for the project, engage with more developers. That's a given. We're going to continue to make big investments in these areas. We're actually growing the team right now with a number of open positions. But from a product perspective, I want to talk a little bit about that. The product perspective, here's my perspective, that the first kind of focus for the product related efforts were around creating this Ethereum implementation, right, in Substrate, creating an environment that was very familiar to people, that would work with that people could work with very little friction, that would where the platform would kind of get out of the way, right, and allow developers to express themselves very naturally, allow them to acquire users in a very natural way. I feel like that's something that we've been largely successful at. That is there's always more work to do, but that's something that I think we've achieved a large part of that goal coming into next year. And so where I see a lot of the product focus shifting to is, answering the question, what can we do that's unique? What can we do that differentiates us from other, particularly EVM compatible chains? I just mentioned, Phantom, Polygon, and Avalanche, right? What can we do that's different than those? And I think that, at least one important part of the answer to that question is that it's because we're part of Polkadot, Kusama and Polkadot. There's unique kind of use cases and scenarios that are enabled because we're a parachain on Kusama and Polkadot. and taking advantage of that via the native cross-chain interoperability mechanism called XCM is something that we plan to fully take advantage of that. XCM itself is something that's been under heavy development. It started off with version 0. This is features that are developed by Parity. It then went to version 1. It's now currently on version 2. There's a version 3 in the works already, so it's moving pretty rapidly and evolving rapidly. But we are getting quite close to our first features that will be shipped that are based around XCM. They've been in our Moonbase Alpha testnet for some time. They will be coming to Moonriver within a matter of weeks. So the first of these scenarios are token movement scenarios, so powering the movement of KSM. And so I want to use that opportunity to talk about this second point here around XC20. So what's an XC20? An XC20 is basically a .sama asset, a substrate or .sama asset that's been moved to either Moonriver or Moonbeam. So it's kind of like a new standard. And the thing that's special about an XC20 is that even though it's a kind of substrate level asset, such as you would create on StateMine, for example, or StateMint, when it moves to Moonriver or Moonbeam, it becomes like an ERC20. So it can be used in all the same places that an ERC20 can be used. It can be loaded into MetaMask, right? It can be deposited like as an into a DEX pool, and you get LP tokens out. It's going to be interoperable with all of the things that are happening in the Moonriver and Moonbeam EVM. And so we think this is like a very powerful thing, right? To take an asset that's been created on any of the parachains that are attached to either Kusama or Polkadot, and be able to move them like into this EVM environment that we've taken all this great care to create and foster and have all these tools around. And so I think that's going to really open up the door for a lot of possibilities, use cases for tokens that live inside of the .sama ecosystem. There are more XCM scenarios coming. So we will also have some of the first cross-chain use cases that are not token movement come to life as well. I think I've mentioned before, we are working very closely with the team at Lido on their liquid staking derivative product. So that is something that everyone should expect quite soon as well. And I do think that use case, just to maybe not everyone's heard about it, but the use case there is the Lido team is creating a dApp on both Moonriver and Moonbeam. So let's just take the Moonriver example for the moment. But we've created precompiles. So these are like things that look like smart contracts in the Moonriver, or that will be in the Moonriver EVM, that will allow the Lido application to control staking operations on the Kusama relay chain. And the same setup will also exist on Moonbeam and Polkadot. And so the thing is, it's actually pretty special, where you have this situation now where there's two very specialized chains. You have, let's say, Moonbeam with its EVM environment. You have Polkadot with its very specialized staking functionality. And you have an application that's cutting across both chains at the same time. And you have one user experience, but it's leveraging this specialized functionality from multiple chains. That's the Polkadot idea, right? I mean, this is the core idea of Polkadot. And so we're just starting to have actual use cases, actual apps that you'll be able to use that leverage this idea. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think that's the first of many scenarios that we want to power that are these natively cross-chain scenarios, uniquely enabled by the Polkadot architecture. So that's that's going to be a theme, is kind of bringing more and more of these cross-chain scenarios to life next year, and we'll couple that with more engagement with the community. We have a bounty program that's there'll be more details on. We're rolling that out shortly. I do think there's some bit of travel that's being planned. So I plan to get out to a lot of the places where we have strong community support to pay some local visits. So I think there's a lot of exciting things coming in the future. But yeah, I'd say those are the themes, is around focus on the ecosystem, cross-chain integrations, continue to develop the community.
Yeah, I think I would just add, like, as you mentioned, that we are really, seeing ourselves as a major L1. I think that we want to increase our, program initiatives, whether it be hackathon events or initiatives to kind of, drive growth of existing ecosystem partners and integrations. I think that's something that we're going to be really, focusing on in 2022.
Okay, so I should speak to this, right? So
yeah.
So let's talk about like a little bit of a roadmap of where we came from and where we're going. Moonriver launch, as discussed, back in August, it did take some amount of time to complete the launch sequence. We're going to have this much shorter launch sequence now. We've gone through it all once. All the code is there. We've have increased like our understanding of Substrate, Polkadot, how everything works. So we continue to learn, but I think we've learned quite a bit at this point. I mean, I think our team, outside of Parity themselves, are one of the most knowledgeable teams in the ecosystem now about how everything on Polkadot works. And we've been running several networks now ourselves, these internal test and other networks for over a year at this point. So launch sequence is short. So we're kind of at this towards the end of Q4 right now. You can see. We have a three-phase launch sequence, which will really be less than a month, like all told, the whole thing is our expectation. And then in January, we'll start this like abbreviated version of all of these infrastructure deployments that happened on Moonriver, and we expect all these use cases to start deploying in Q1 in January. There are definitely multiple teams that will be deploying right in January, and I kind of think that the what's going to happen is likely almost an accelerated version of like what happened on Moonriver, because I think we'll have more of the pieces like in place quicker. And so we should see, the ecosystem on Moonbeam, come to life in relatively short order. I would take the opportunity to comment, though. I have gotten this question that, the question I've heard is, well, what does that mean for Moonriver once Moonbeam is launched? And I have answered it a number of times, but I'll answer it again now that these are two separate networks. They, are each like independent. They will each continue like forward, like in perpetuity. So there's no kind of thing where, Moonbeam is launched, that somehow means like Moonriver is like, is not important or something like this. I mean, these are two, they have the same code base, but they are just two different environments. And, we have a lot of teams that plan to deploy to both. And we have, a minority of teams that might be targeting either one or the other. But there is a large amount of overlap, on the deployments between the two. In fact, one thing I've been interested by is a lot of the teams that are native on Moonriver, right? So these were teams that, kind of seized the opportunity, like were quick to deploy on Moonriver, got traction. In discussions with them in the last, several weeks, it's become clear that many of them plan for Moonbeam deployments as well, which, that's a great sign on multiple fronts. I mean, I think that they like the ecosystem, they like, being here, and they see an opportunity to, kind of do something special like on Moonbeam, as well as, what they've done on Moonriver. So. Great. I think we had some questions that came in, right?
All right. Now I can come back. I got lost on the slides. So we'll take in some questions now. Anybody that's got questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A section here, and we'll run through a couple here. So the first one here. Hi team, curious if devs are required to launch new projects on Moonriver before being able to launch to Moonbeam. Is it a requirement, or does it serve as more of an optional tool for DApp testing? So I'll hand that one over to you, Derek.
Yeah, so I kind of already partially answered this. So the answer is, strictly speaking, no. There is no requirement. You can deploy, only to Moonriver or only to Moonbeam. That's purely a choice. I think that this idea of having two environments and having the original idea of the canary net that Parity had, that is something that we still believe in. So we still have this idea that will be, when we introduce new features, for example, the XEM features we just talked about, they're in our testnet now. They'll then be promoted to Moonriver. So Moonriver will get those features first. and then only after they've been in Moonriver for some amount of time will they be promoted up into Moonbeam. So we're using that kind of process, and in speaking with a number of teams, I think they do plan to do the same. But to categorize everyone is not possible. I mean, there are teams that are, hey, I'm just Moonriver. Hey, I'm just Moonbeam. I think there's going to be a mix, and there is no strict requirement on what your strategy is. You can choose whatever strategy makes sense for your project.
Cool. We'll skip down to, there's one in here around, will there be a bridge directly available like any swap to trade Moonbeam on chain, or will there be listings? So focusing on more on the bridging aspect of it, Derek, I can let you speak to what we expect to kind of happen there.
Yeah, I think that the strategy relative to bridges has been to so let me contrast like what's happened on Moonriver with what's happened on some other chains. So I think the strategy that a lot of other chains employ is to say kind of a bridge to Ethereum, let's say, is just part of like what the core team's responsibility is. So like the core team like makes that bridge, and then they all say, hey, like this bridge is kind of the state-sponsored bridge. This is the one that you should use. We did not take that approach, and in general, I think it's in line with kind of the philosophy that we have, which is that we're trying to kind of stay out of the way and get out of the way as much as possible, and we want to encourage other teams to deploy, right? And we see ourselves as these like enablers, right? Like of being able to provide an environment where other people can express themselves. To that end, on Moonriver, there's been quite a bit of bridges deployed. So I think there's probably 7, 8. I mean, who knows? Maybe 9 bridges at this point. But there are also bridges that have gotten some majority of the traction. That's good in my mind. That's that's the market. That's let it be an open playing field, and let and then see what happens. So I think there's at least some part of that will be the case on Moonbeam. There is no plans for the team or the Moonbeam Foundation to create like a bridging solution, but look for there will be some collection of bridges and partners that will be available to reach different destinations, non-Polkadot based destinations.
Okay, cool. There are 2 that are kind of forward-facing, and I'll mix them together a little bit. The question is, what comes after EVM compatibility? Is Moonbeam also Wasm compatible, which we can touch on? And is there a vision for like the next 5 years? Derek, I'll split that out from some of the rest of the question that I'll pose to Olivia. But if you want to tackle that, I'll give one to Olivia after this.
Sure. Yeah. So in the sense of like are we using Wasm? The answer is actually yes, because everything like that's based on Substrate and Polkadot is using Wasm, right? This is how like just Polkadot itself works. Like so the Moonbeam runtime like is like under the hood using Wasm, and that's how like relay chain validators like validate or execute parablocks. But I think probably what the person who asked the question had in mind was Wasm in the sense of Wasm-based smart contracts. There is this ink technology that Parity has created as kind of an alternative to the EVM and the Ethereum technology stack. We at present do not have plans to add ink as a supported smart contract language, let's say, to Moonbeam. Part of that is just because we've like focused on the Ethereum tech stack, and we've made design decisions in Moonbeam itself to make it as good an environment as we can for the Ethereum style tech stack. That includes things like changing the accounts, right? The underlying accounts in our chain are 0x style, Ethereum style accounts. And so, I think that, we've gone to all these lengths to kind of optimize our system for the Ethereum tech stack. So that, that's kind of what Moonbeam is about. To answer the second question, though, of kind of this much longer ranging thing, I mean, in the nearer term, as I mentioned, these cross-chain integrations are definitely like top of mind. Like that's, the nearest term opportunity as XCM is stabilized. There's like tons of collaborations with other teams in the ecosystem and other features and functionality that we can bring to bear. So that's going to be certainly a focus, like, more practically and tangibly into 2022. But, to answer the question of like what the longer range, looks like, I do think that in the longer range, we will be looking for other opportunities of like important infrastructure that needs to be built. And it may be the case that it would make sense to embark upon like another parachain project that would be complementary to Moonbeam. And yeah, there's a few different like ideas there. And again, this is kind of further out, but yeah, I think that there's just such a big opportunity and such a big design space that we can kind of work with Substrate that as we get more use cases and traction on Moonbeam, I think it'll become obvious what's missing, and then an opportunity at the same time to create that missing thing.
Cool. Well, I'll hand one over to you, Olivia. Curious what will happen when the loan ends. Means that Moonbeam will continue running on Polkadot, or has to loan another parachain to continue running?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and it mirrors kind of what is going on with the crowd loan for Moonriver on Kusama. So when the loan ends, or when the lease ends, which is 96 weeks, which starts when we deploy tomorrow. Roughly 96 weeks, it's by block. The loan, your DOT that you contributed, will be returned to you. And there will be another auction for Moonbeam to secure a slot on Polkadot, similar to the lease ending on Moonriver, and Moonriver having to secure another slot through an auction. So with Moonriver, the lease was it is a lot shorter. It's 48 weeks, whereas for Moonbeam, it's 96 weeks. But the moral of the story is that your DOT and KSM will be returned, and the networks will have to secure another slot. This is something that I think, we're excited about, because, we are showing that we are an integral part of the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem, and that there is a growing community around us. So for Moonbeam, we will, in 96 weeks, we will kind of reorganize and figure out what the best strategy is for, securing the slot. But it's something that, you will get the DOT back, and then there'll be another opportunity, hopefully, to participate.
The good news is, just like many other things, we'll do like a trial renewal run on Moonriver first, right? So that's coming up much sooner. I mean, the scary part is we even are starting to talk about like the renewal already, since that's in May, I think, right? So it's it's
coming up.
So that the planning for that is going to start quite soon here.
No rest for the weary. Well, I see that there's a Moovering Christmas coming up. There is a comment in here that a cameo would be great. I think we can probably find someone on the team to show up. I vote Olivia, but we'll see if we can get her to show up. So there's a question in here around if you're building a project, who to reach out to. Go to the Telegram. You can find in kind of the automated message. There's myself and Francisco. Our handles are there. Feel free to reach out. There's a question in here for Derek in terms of, is there a possibility that someday Moonbeam and Moonriver would be bridged?
I'm quite confident that'll happen shortly after launch. I mentioned there's already all of these bridging projects that have cut their teeth on Moonriver. And many of them plan Moonbeam deployments, and so that's in the nature of the protocol right there. If they're already deployed to Moonriver and to Moonbeam, they will act as a bridging opportunity between the two networks.
Cool. From Pat, what's the project you're most excited to have built on Moonbeam? We love all projects built on Moonriver and Moonbeam. We don't have any allegiance to any project. We love all of them equally. My favorort question is no questions, just extremely bullish. That is all. Thank you, Craigson. It's a great question.
I'll comment on I'll go back and comment on the project, and I don't want to name a project either, but I just happened to be looking at one this weekend that I'll mention, that because I do think there are some projects that have gotten quite a bit of user traction on Moonriver right now. So I was looking at there's this Olympus DAO 4 called Rome as one example. And I think when I think about what is our what is our purpose in the larger Datsama ecosystem, and I see it as we're kind of we're like the on-ramp, or kind of like the front door to a lot of people, right? We provide this familiar environment where people can come in, and we're not you don't have to change wallets, you don't have to do it, you can kind of come in. And so I think that's kind of our role to play, is be this kind of on-ramp. People come in, and then maybe they come in for whatever reason they come in, but once they're there, then they might say, okay, like, what is it to be a parachain, or what is Polkadot about, or how does how do these cross-chain integrations work? So people might start learning then about like the rest of the .sama ecosystem, and then they may be even exploring like some of the integrations, which may lead them to like other parachains in the ecosystem. So I feel good that that's kind of like something important. I feel that we can kind of provide back to like the whole ecosystem, is just to be this familiar place where people start, but then it's kind of a jumping off point to learn more.
Sure. There's a question in here. Where can I read more about the XC20 standard?
Yes, there is. You will not find a lot of documentation on this, but that's because the dev relations team, Alberto and others, are hard at work putting together the initial set of documentation for this. It certainly will be part of the developer documentation set. I just don't think it's been released yet. It will be released quite soon, though. So I think stay tuned for that in the next probably like the next 2 to 3 weeks. We should have some documentation up and some other materials for people to look at so they understand how these things are going to work.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's been about 15 minutes of questions. So I think at this point we can go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Derek, as always. Great job. Everybody feel free to reach out on Telegram if there are more questions that we can try to answer for you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, Nate, I just wanted to end this. I don't know if you, Olivia, or Derek have any final thoughts for the community.
Want to take it, Olivia? Or?
Yeah,
no, Derek, you should take it.
I think that what can I say? I would say that we've been working on this project for quite some time. There's just been this huge amount of progress. You saw from some of the stats, this huge amount of progress, but in some sense, we're just at the beginning. I mean, we're just going to start producing blocks on the Moonbeam network, tomorrow, as Olivia's pointed out. So, I just kind of I feel like there's already been such a rich story, but it also I kind of think about the fact that this is almost just chapter 1 right now, that's about to start happening. And people call me crazy, and I'm like, we're going to be, this is going to be around for many, for let's say decades, and people kind of look at me like, hey, you're talking crazy. It's like, no, I really think that this is the work that we're doing here, and we're contributing in our small part towards this larger .sama ecosystem, which I think is going to be one of the foundational infrastructure for this whole Web3 shift that, I think more and more people see coming now. So, I just appreciate everyone kind of helping to make it happen, helping being part of this this big shift. And that's it, I think.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.